Of course, my husband is here, and my neighbor across the street, Remy, and then Jessica Fershing is here with all of just my wonderful Catholic friends, and it means the world to me, and Ann King, my sister from another mister. So thank you. This is quite a journey. Before I forget, I'm holding these up. Father Anthony blessed these ahead of time, and they're the Memorare and a couple of Hershey Kisses, because you get hugs and kisses from Mama Mary, and then a miraculous medal. So I want to pass these along to all of you. And I can't wait to tell you my story, so bear with me a little bit. Have you ever heard of crisis mode? Do you know what crisis mode is? Crisis mode is, like whack-a-mole, right? It's one thing after the other after the other. So I'm going to tell you the story of how everything was merrily rolling along in my life. At least I thought it was. And all of a sudden it wasn't. So I think I'll go back. Let's start at the very beginning. My favorite show in the world, Sound of Music, Jessica knows. I could probably name I can script it. And pardon me, I'm going to say it right now. I was prepared to have a couple of videos to kind of help tell the story. And now I'll just tap dance and sing for you, so you'll have to deal with me. But in the news business, we say if it bleeds, it leads. And people are chasing after crises and really kind of headlining people's heartbreaks. And I realized I was in that rat race. I was kind of doing that more recently. So I'm going to start with that headline and then back it up a little bit. I was raised Catholic. I'm from the Del Cerro area, from Palm Springs, actually, and then moved to Del Cerro and I was a cradle Catholic, went to St. Teresa Academy, and my parents divorced when I was about 8 years old, and I felt like I was the only one in the world whose parents divorced at that time. I was so ashamed. I was just so embarrassed, and my good friends are still my great friends over here, so they never left sight of me. But it was terribly embarrassing to leave St. Teresa Academy. It was our little haven with my two brothers. I'm in the middle of Kevin, who's a year and a half older, and Darren is my Irish twin. So he's about 11 months younger than I am. And so we shifted from St. Teresa Academy, and we transferred to the San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts. I thought I was going to go on to Broadway. And then later, I did go on to Broadway because that is where NBC is, but that's God's sense of humor. No, you're not ready for that. But the Performing Arts High School is where I went, and it was great. It was fun. But and we did dance on the tables at lunchtime, by the way. But I started to feel like we weren't going to Mass anymore. My mom was raising the three of us. The term latchkey. I was a latchkey kid with my brothers. Coming home, Mom was working. Dad wasn't in the picture. At least, he was across town working. But we learned to kind of fend for ourselves. And fortunately, my mom said, you need to get into music classes, dance classes, just stay busy, go, do performing, musical theater. So we were busy, fortunately, and we had the path, but we were busy because it was very much about me. It was very much about, I want to be on stage, I want to do this, and that was, my path really turned from going to Mass every day, being a part of the Catholic community. And my mom was devout Catholic as well, so we just really had a major shift at that point in time. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I was the first in my family to graduate from college, and San Diego State, go Aztecs, I know there's a big game tonight. But I went to San Diego State. I was a communications major. And I always knew, in fact, Jessica just reminded me of this. My dear friend Jessica, who is also my sister from another mister, I sang in her wedding, and I'm embarrassed to say she just showed me some of the videos. I used to, carry a spoon around and, as my microphone, and I kind of stopped and took over her wedding video, and I interviewed everybody that was part of the party, so that's embarrassing, but I guess I always knew I had the gift of gab, right? But anyway, so we were I graduated from college, and then I met my husband. So again, I'm fast forwarding a little bit. David, who's also in the audience here, David King. I would say Mr. Wright, but Mr. King, or King David. That's how he introduced himself to me.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. And I went from a tailor to a king, and I didn't think that was such a bad thing, right? And I say it's a king thing. But David and I met at the airport. I worked for the airlines. I was too short to be a flight attendant, so I worked at the ticket counter. I'm only 5'1", so I could barely even see over the ticket counter, but I still had all of the same benefits. I could fly, I could, work part-time. I was going to school, I was juggling, I was just interning over at Channel 8, and I always, I was trying to do it all. I was grabbing that, brass ring. No room at all for my Catholic faith, by the way, in this period of time. I was hustling, and I knew right where I wanted to go, and I tell you all of this because we're going to flip the script on this story. So David was an undercover special narcotics agent, and I was so intrigued. And I was dating a pilot at the time. He was dating somebody up in San Francisco, and it turns out it was a match made in heaven. God knows what he was doing. So we got married. We've been married 28 years. We got married on December 16th, so happy anniversary. And I'll say this here right now. My parents were divorced when I was 8. David's parents were divorced when he was probably between 8 and 9. My grandparents got divorced on both sides. What a horrible legacy that is, right? So, and it was unheard of for grandparents at that time to get divorced. So we didn't have, when David and I got married, our role models, let me take that back. We had a lot of role models. We just didn't know where to find them. So we were, parents divorced, grandparents divorced, and just kind of fumbling along. I'm going to say this now too. So scheduling was insane. I started to work on television, and I worked at NBC for 12, 13 years, and then I worked later at CBS, early morning show. Just guess what time I had to get up to get on to work. Any guesses? 2:30. So good close. Because makeup, Thank goodness. And I got off the air when high definition came. No, I don't have the face for that. Too much Botox, and I'm not paying for that. But anyway, so I got up, at 2:30 in the morning. And David, as a special agent in charge, he's out narcotics, there's no time frame on narcotics, usually in the middle of the night. So we would high five in the hallways when he's coming home, and I'm getting up and going on the air. And somewhere in this period of time, we had 2 amazing children, and we'll talk about them in just a moment too. Cameron is now 25. He is a Chula Vista police officer. Yay, thank you. And Carly is 22, and she is an intelligence analyst with the FBI Fusion Center here in San Diego. And so, yes, Blue Bloods, I think I have a little dream, too. I would love to just be an extra on Blue Bloods. I think this is so cool. But it is in my family. It is definitely the law enforcement family, and I have the ultimate respect for law enforcement and for military. My brother-in-law, David's brother, was in the Marine Corps for 16 years and went on 3 tours, and now he's in medical school, if you can believe it or not. He has PTSD, he's 43, and he's killing it. So just keep him in your prayers, Ryan King, but he's a smart cookie. And so I love law enforcement, and I lived law enforcement. So as Cameron and Carly are wee ones, I'm fleeting off to work in the early mornings. David's coming in on the early mornings, doing that high five in the hallway, and we are just going apart and apart. He's doing his life, I'm doing my life, and then somewhere in the middle, we're raising kids. David, because it was the Bureau of Narcotics, Department of Justice, California at the time, so pretty soon David was based out of El Centro, and he was there for how many years? I don't know, how long? 6 years in El Centro. bought a house in El Centro because that's a crazy commute. And then pretty soon from El Centro was Riverside. And then the latter part of his career, he was in Los Angeles for 5 years. And he drove every day from San Diego to Los Angeles. So you can just imagine what's going on for David in his own world, feeling separated from the family, and then what's really going on in my world with the kids. And then I felt alone. I felt like a single mom myself at times. I'm sure he felt like a single dad. And on top of all of this, so just let me say this too. In an 8-year period, we lost all 4 of our parents every 3 years. And this is going to be the bulk of what I want to talk to you about this evening, and that's the gift of caregiving. So my father was the first to go. He had pancreatic cancer. He was only 74 years old. He was an avid runner, marathon runner, skier, cyclist, and he was told, and I'll get to this, but 6 months he was gone. And then the next to go was David's mother. And I'm going to say this now. David's mother and myself, we did not have a wonderful relationship, and it breaks my heart. My mother-in-law, if I can be so bold, she pretty much hated me. And it's probably because I married King David. And but it took me a while to figure that out. And so throughout all of our marriage, that woman lived to divide us. And I could tell you so many stories. I'm going to taper it back a little bit, but shocking. I've never met anybody that hated me so much. And I was fumbling around for my own faith at this time. I was trying to figure out, what did I do? What happened? I didn't expect any of this. So I ended up not knowing that the very next day, Maureen would pass. She had Parkinson's. She had an infection, and she had a lot of neurological toward the very, very end, and physical mostly. But I prayed with her. I sat down, and it was Holy Spirit, 100%. I didn't even really know how to talk to her. David wasn't there, and I just sat down and I prayed over her. I prayed the Rosary. And because she couldn't say anything, I'm like, I'm going to take advantage of this moment. But you know what? I was praying for her a peaceful death because I knew it was imminent. And I asked her to forgive me. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I know that was Jesus because I didn't have the will. I was so depressed. I just thought I was a complete failure in her eyes. And even though in the television world, everybody looks perfect on social media, the makeup, the smiles, there was a whole bunch going on behind the scenes. And so I had to cover up a lot through these years. So I wanted to tell you that because I felt a tremendous sense of peace and letting go. And finally, that the only thing I could really do is pray her up to heaven. And I pray that's where she is. And I pray that she's forgiven me for, marrying her son. But anyway, so that was a really difficult time in our lives. And it just kept rearing its ugly head just to drive that wedge. So, and then the next one to go is David's father, who had Alzheimer's. And then 3 years after that, my mom. And this is the journey that I walked with my mom through a 10-year journey of Alzheimer's disease. I learned a lot about generational healing. And thanks to the Women's Christian Fellowship, Jessica has brought me to so many healing masses. God bless her heart. Generational healing is so important to learn, to forgive, to understand what your past looks like. And not to make the same mistakes that our ancestors have made. I was at a talk recently, and they said it only takes one person to shift the legacy. So take the heat and do the work. And that rang so true with me when I heard that. It is certain people, my mother-in-law was filled with anger and resentment and just jealousy and just, I would say more than anything, it was anger. And I kept coming up against her. I'm like my mom. I would come out singing wherever I was. I'm kind of the happy-go-lucky gal. And so you have two completely opposite personalities. And I just wanted to shift that legacy. So there was just a lot going on in our house growing up when the kids were young. Unfortunately, there was also the anger carried over to our marriage. We were angry, we were yelling at each other, and the kids were we were trying to run from one place to the next with them, trying to meet there in the middle. And it just, you just get to the point where I was on the outside looking in, and I just felt like I was wrong all the time. I was also really, I'm going to talk about this for a moment. I was motivated by my career. I thought, you know what? I earned 2 Emmy Awards. I'm bringing them up here tonight to show you. They're pretty heavy. And I have to tell you, I'm putting them right next to our Blessed Mother Mary because this is a weapon, actually. You see how sharp this is? But my new weapon is Mother Mary, and so I'm taking this away. And I'll take the applause on that for Mother Mary. But for a long time, I thought, oh, I'm going to go to national. I'm getting up early. Gosh, you know what? I'm doing great. I had 3 shows. I was flying in the helicopter, doing traffic and weather, and I was having a great time. I loved going to work. I loved flying. I miss my helicopter. That's really the only thing I miss in television any longer. It was a great job. And I'm like, I'm getting paid for this? Wow, that's great. Meanwhile, David has an amazing job, and so I'm all about me. He's actually doing something in the world, trying to clear drugs out of there, the drug trafficking, and we finally just came to a blow. And a counselor told us, we finally went to a counselor, and he said, one of you has to get off the stage. One of you has to really figure out what's important in your life. You can't both be. You have high-profile careers. You're chasing these dreams. One of you has to let go. And I said, if that means I can sleep in, I'll do it. So I was still trying to figure out. My ego was just beyond ego. My pride, and I hope and pray I'm a different person now, but I recognize it, and I know that I was holding on to, Kimberly King on TV, and I remembered, I thought I always had to show up and be on, and that counselor's words that somebody has to let go and get off the stage really rang true for me, and I realized that I was motivated by all the wrong things. That's when I fell to my knees. I fell to my knees in my room, and the scales came down. I surrendered myself. I surrendered, and it was the most amazing moment in my life when I let go and said, Jesus, come, Holy Spirit, and take the wheel. Take, Lord, and receive with all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will. All I have and call my own, you have given to me. To you, Lord, I return it. Everything is yours. Do it with what you will. Give me your only love and your grace. That is enough for me, Lord. I surrender to you, Lord. So from that point, I'm going to say, God qualifies the called. But remember that you are most qualified in life to help the person you used to be. I'm going to read that again because that also rang true to me. God qualifies the called. Remember, you are most qualified in life to help that person you used to be. And from that day forward, when I hit my knees, I wanted to give back. I wanted to change. I wanted to just let go of everything. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the very beginning. So how long do we have? No, I'm just kidding. But I knew that things were changing, and now I'm shifting, and I'm trying to figure things out. And God does have a great sense of humor. My TV contract wasn't renewed at NBC, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Don't you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal around here. So I thought, right? So I was humiliated. I was so bummed out. I kind of went into hiding, and I'm like, what in the world? Shortly after, I got hired at CBS 8. It was only a 3-year contract, but again, it was on mornings, really early mornings, and I'm like, I am so done with this. So that contract ended, and then I worked briefly at Cathedral Catholic High School before our kids went into Cathedral. And I was their inaugural communications director, and I loved it. I thought it was so awesome. I prayed, God, please give me a job that says the name Catholic in it, so I can just speak to that. I want to show up for my faith. And then he answered the prayers, and I worked at Cathedral, and I loved it. But as that was happening, everything was still tumultuous and upside down in our world. I ended up moving out briefly. David and I were talking to divorce attorneys. It was a nightmare. Our kids were Cameron, who's, I don't know how I even had him because he's like 6'1" and huge. But he, at the time, was at Mesa Verde Middle School, and he was getting bullied. And it was really hard to just see him come home, and he was so downtrodden. David, again, was between El Centro, Riverside, and Los Angeles, and our family was in turmoil. And so I said, we need to transfer them to Catholic school. So they transferred at that time to Notre Dame Academy. And I'm working at Cathedral now, and I'm thinking, okay, it's kind of going, but that's really at the height of David's and our marital problems. We could not turn things around. And so I did move out for a brief time. Everything financially was falling apart. We were just a mess. And so I want to say that this is probably a good point, too, to remind you that whack-a-mole game, it starts to rev up even more now. But after switching the kids to Catholic school, I just realized, and being at Cathedral, that God is always present. No matter what is going on in our lives, he knows where we're going to end up. He knows what's going on. His plans are bigger than what we can see. And so I was driving to school one day, to Cathedral. I was driving to work, and my dad called me. And my dad he was living in San Diego, so I saw him. And my mom and dad, God bless them both, always came together, especially for holidays. They were friends. They made it work for Kevin and Darren and myself. So we had a pretty good, we had a pretty good relationship there, but that from my eyes. But my dad called and he said, can you pull over? I have to tell you something. And that's when he told me he had pancreatic cancer. But not only did he have pancreatic cancer, and it's the deadliest cancer. There's no cure still to this day. It's been 10 years since he's passed, and there's still no cure. So I'm revving up, and I will do whatever I can to help find a cure for pancreatic cancer. At that time, my dad both of my parents were married 3 times. So just throwing that out there too. That's all part of it. Big mixture in here. But my dad said, I need you to help me out, because my wife, and I'm not going to even say her name because I don't want to give Jesus anymore, I don't want to give the devil any more airtime. Jesus, yes. But she was abandoning him at this point in time, and he knew it. He said she's locked herself in their office, in their home in Fairbanks Ranch area, and he said, I don't have a really good feeling about what's going on. So in between the time my dad told me this, 6 months later, my dad had an estate, and I was being sued for his entire estate. And she sued me the day after my dad died, on our 18th wedding anniversary. And just, wow. just evil, and these people exist. I ended up getting a private investigator, found out that she had been married 4 or 5 times prior, and all of her spouses had passed. So I was living Blue Bloods or a real life drama, I was living it. During this point in time, I would go to my dad's. I started taking him to all of his medical appointments. We're balancing. David and I are in counseling, so we're back in the house now. We're all, trying to figure things out. Karen, I think, is at high school now at Cathedral. Carly's still in middle school. And I went to my dad's house at one point in this 6-month period, and the locks were starting to be changed. And you know where I'm going with this. 7 times that woman tried to change the locks so I couldn't get in to be with my dad. And I didn't see any of this come. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what was going on. How can somebody be so evil? And she was really trying to, their prenup, she was trying to, the legal battle that ensued and started to ensue, she was trying to just hit me at every corner. Again, or when you have the sprinklers coming off and you're trying to plug all of the leaks coming up, this is my life. This was what was going on while I was working at Cathedral, taking my dad to all of his doctor's appointments, seeing this lawsuit bubble up, and then just facing evil, looking at her every day, and I knew I was looking at the devil. I felt it. I knew it. We didn't get the locks changed. I'm little, but I can be mighty. And the sheriff were there, and we never had that happen. We went after my dad passed, and I was sued the day after, out came a probably 5 to 6 year legal battle with her. And then the lawyers. How many lawyers? I can't even count how many lawyers were in there. It was so awful and just a money grab. And I was the executrix, and I was trying to figure it all out. And I say on my own because you feel like you're on your own. Why is this happening to me? And meanwhile, David's holding down the fort with the kids. I'm getting called left, right, and center, going to court, trying to answer. I'm going to probate, by the way. So there was some, which was you just feel like a failure. And I wasn't even there when my dad got married to her. So I'm his voice now. And I was learning how to be really fierce. I was learning how to say, oh, no, not today. Not today, Satan. But that takes a lot to learn. I say this. We learn the facts of life, but we don't learn the facts of death and dying. And there's a whole other side to death and dying, where it comes from legal, where it comes to emotional, grieving, financial, just being prepared. And so here's my first, foray into this, and I had no idea what I was getting into. So I'm going to move forward now for time purposes. And again, maybe one day I'll write a book. I don't know. I know we all have our crosses to bear. We all have a story to tell. And one day I hope to hear all of yours. I just, for the little bit that I've gone through, this is why I'm here tonight, to really share that it doesn't always look beautiful what you see, and we all know this, social media, on television, but it's, kind of when we look at people, and we're all good Catholics here and good Christians, that, you never know what people are going through. You just never know. And, we can come out and smile, and there could be so much sadness behind. So after my dad passed and I was doing the legal, dance, I will say again that God has always been present. And as we buried my dad, some friends of ours came up to me and said, "Is your mom okay? Is she okay?" And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And to this day, I feel horrible because I wasn't paying attention to my mom. But there's a thing called aphasia. That's the lack of word finding. And that goes hand in hand with dementia and Alzheimer's. My mom was having a hard time communicating. And because I wasn't with her, I was carrying, my dad's estate, the legal, all of that, kids, husband, everything. I wasn't paying attention. And I want to say right here that, it's part of our 10 Commandments to care for our parents and to honor our mother and father. And I felt horrible, but here we go again, Mom. Let's go to the doctor. Let's get you checked out. So it was a short goodbye for my father, and it was a long goodbye for my mother. It was a 10-year journey with her. And so I was going to show you some fantastic videos tonight because my mom started getting more airtime than I ever had. And I'm like, you go, Jackie. But my mom was featured in an amazing place. It's south of San Diego in Chula Vista. It was called Glenner Town Square, and I owe so much to Glenner Town Square. It's an adult daycare center. Hi, Lisa. And it came along at the most perfect time because I was, again, I felt like a single mom. David felt like a single dad. We're raising the kids. I just buried my dad. He buried his mom, then his dad, and now we're on the journey with my mom. And it just was like, oh my gosh. And you know what the thing is? We're all going to die, right? But I acted as if, well, wait a minute. You can't die today. This can't happen right now. You just can't. But my mom, at Glenner Town Center, Glenner Town Squares in Chula Vista, and from the outside, it's a warehouse. When you walk in, it looks like you went back to the 1950s. It's the most amazing place, and it's called reminiscence therapy. And so my mom, I don't even know how old she was when she went in, 75 maybe? She would go in, and it felt like she was at Disneyland. So they had the little soda fountain. Everything looked like 1950s, but they met her where she was at. A lot of these folks that have Alzheimer's and dementia. And she started getting featured on Inside Edition, Nightline, I don't know, BBC. She was on Russian television. She was on Israeli television. I'm like, where are you going today? Wow. So I just loved it because we kind of went full circle with my mom. And she did not, okay, where do I get this from? She never met a camera or microphone that she didn't know where it was or what. So my mom would kind of be in the ups and downs of Alzheimer's, but all of a sudden there would be a camera and she'd be like, hi. So anyway, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? But my mom, I started journaling and then video journaling and just videotaping her. And she was so cute. I had to put cameras in her house because she lived in La Mesa, by the way. I didn't make that clear. We're up here in Rancho Penasquitos, and again, doing the drive to La Mesa and just trying to make sure everything was okay. And I can't tell you how many times I'm just worried. My mom lived in a 2-story house, and there's just things you have to think about, really logical things, because it was as if my mom went back to being 6 years old again. And so safety, she needs the rails. She needs, she shouldn't be rocking up and down the stairs. Physically, she was okay, but mentally, she was a little girl. And I had a little thought and I wanted to tell you, and it just completely ran out of my mind. I put cameras in her home because I had to, if I wasn't going to be there, so at least, and I know that sounds creepy, I don't mean it to be, but it was downstairs, it wasn't in her bedroom or anything, but I could keep an eye and I would kind of get to know her patterns. And I just remember her favorite song later in life was Happy by Pharrell. Happy. My mom would just start dancing in the living room by herself. It was the cutest thing. If I had this video, you would know what I'm talking about. She's just dancing and so happy, and there would be nobody there, but gosh, if I just cranked up Happy over the video, she would just start dancing. It was so cute. So she was a really happy-go-lucky, for the most part, through Alzheimer's. I have to bring this up too because Mary's sitting over here. I didn't know what I was doing again. I'm not, you never know what you're doing when you have a new disease or a cancer diagnosis, but I was just really starting to walk back into my Catholic faith. I'm sitting at a stoplight with my mom, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I keep her? She's super antsy. She would always be there with her purse ready to go. Kim, where are you? Where are you? You know, Kim. And I was working. I was trying to, go to court all day long, right? I had things happening. So I was with my mom, and I'm at the stoplight, and I'm like, Lord, please just give me a sign. I need to figure out what's next for Mom. Boom, here comes Mary. Mary Parada pulls up to me. My sweet friend from elementary school at St. Therese. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she just said, how are things going? I see a little bit about your mom. Is everything okay? That's a caring friend. This is a friend this is my cradle Catholic friend, all of you. And it means the world to me that you care enough to ask, are you okay? You need help? And I'm like, yeah, I need help. So Mary had some friends that are caregivers, but companions. Companions was the perfect thing for my mom. They would go take her to the movies. They would take her window shopping. They would tap dance with her. They would sing with her. They would do karaoke. They'd go bowling with her. My mom was an active thing. I'm telling you what, I just had no energy for that. I was like, wow, how am I going to get through this? So her companions or cousins and just meant the world to me. And I would never have known them had I not pulled up at that stoplight. So God's signs, again, he's everywhere, and he always knows what we need at the right exact time. Through all of this, as we're in the walk, when we say I found my true anchor, this is really when this happened. I was balancing my mom with Alzheimer's in La Mesa. Carly is probably a junior now at Cathedral. Cameron, maybe he's already at San Diego State. Cameron ended up playing football at Cathedral and then went to San Diego State, was a lawn snapper. So he's gone, and it's just Carly and me, and we were sitting in her room one night, and I started praying the Hail Mary with Carly, and it was miraculous. Mother Mary burst through her wall, burst through so much so that I went, and she ran out of the room. She ran out. She knew that something happened to me. Mother Mary wrapped her arms so tightly and held me for just the moment I needed. She was beautiful. She was wearing her blue. It was Our Lady of Grace, almost as if to say, you're losing your mama. I'm your mama. I'm always going to be here, and I'm always going to be your blessed mommy. And I needed that, and it just took my breath away. It took my breath away. And from this point, I have had the most devout devotion to our Blessed Mother Mary. And it's not an easy story to tell because people think you're crazy, but Mary is so real to me. And so in our walkway, when you walk into our front yard, we have Blessed Mother Mary. Remy knows. She's taller than I am. Who isn't? But I put her there for a reason, because I want everybody that passes through my door to know that it's blessed by Mary. And not today, Satan, not in our house, not anymore. And it's so funny because now I have a business where I have a PR firm, and it's very boutique, and I work one-on-one. I do a lot of media training for my clients, and they're featured locally, nationally, globally, and a lot of military. I have first responders, and I love what I'm doing. I love that they're the ones on air and I'm not any longer, so I get to tell them on the background. But I had a client recently. He's a retired Air Force major, and he was raised Catholic, fell away from his faith, and I had him come by my studio. I have a little studio, and he came up when he saw Mother Mary, and he just stopped, and he goes, oh my gosh, I'm back in grade school. I'm back in Catholic school. Wow. And he did the sign of the cross, and he said, thank you. I needed that. I needed that. His girlfriend, I think at the time, was Buddhist, and he is finding his way back. He just texted me on Christmas Eve. He lives in Arizona, but he was here, and he said, I want to go to Catholic Mass at 10 o'clock at night. I want to find out. I know you know where that is. And I'm like, yep, I've got some places for you, depending where you are. So I'm working on them. But and then I noticed in my neighborhood, we have just a diverse neighbors. And we have an Indian family down the way, and I just adore them. Mom lives in the family with them, and she's probably in her late 80s, maybe early 90s. And I know they're not Catholic, but one day I came out, and she was just staring at Mother Mary, and I said, hi. And she said, I love her. I love her. She's beautiful. And I said, thank you. And she was so reverent. And I said, so that's where I want to meet people now. I want to introduce everybody I know to Mary. I want everybody to know who she is and what she can do in your life. The Rosary is my weapon. You know, my family carries guns. I carry the Rosary. I carry my mom's Rosary. And so I just really, that was the moment that really turned from my anchor. So I have my Mary wherever I go, and I love blue because that's Mary's color. But I went from having a me-sized life to a God-sized life, and I'm trying every day, right? We're not perfect, but I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be that saint. David and I are doing so much better. Thank you for, all my friends here, their prayers and their support. David and I have gone through some serious counseling, but more importantly, we found an amazing spiritual director. And that Father Martin, if anybody knows who Father Martin is from the Millis Christis, asked me to go on a pilgrimage to Rome, and there's Laura with me, and Portugal for World Youth Day. It's in Victoria. Amazing. God met me where I was at, knew I needed to just rest for a moment. It was 2 weeks of just pure heaven. I learned so much, as I know you did too, who went, it was amazing. And he asked me to go as a chaperone. And I'm like, sure, yeah, I'll go. I loved, can I say it one more time? I love seeing our youth that are reverent, our young adults. I learned so much from them. Every day was a gift, and every day is a gift. And I took things for granted, for so long in my life as, being on air, thinking that was it. We're not even done, in life. There's just so much. We're empty nesters now, for the most part. Carly's back home from graduating, and she's wanting to move out, but she's found her great place working. Cameron, really quick story about Cameron. When he became a Chula Vista police officer, one of his first nights, maybe like first week, he's going to see a lot of things. He's going to see a lot of things, and things that I probably will never know. But he did share a couple of things, and at Cathedral they learned sign language. That was their language. And Cameron was literally with his sergeant. He was a trainee, and they show up to the school, and I don't even know if he knew it was a school for the deaf, but Cameron got down on his knees and started signing with the kids who really just wanted to find out about being a police officer. I think they were there for a reason. I don't even know what it was. But when the sergeant and everybody realized, oh, he has another language here. And so Cameron is one of two, I think, on the Chula Vista Police Department that signs, and they will call on him. There's a young man who has special needs, and he gets violent. And he has his mom and his family, they fight, but he's deaf, and deaf with special needs. And Cameron's that call all the time. This man, young man, really respects Cameron, and Cameron tries to talk to him, and Cameron has to really take him away from his family so he doesn't hurt anybody. But and then one of Cameron's first calls as well was a baby that died in the middle of the night from SIDS. Was no foul play, but imagine Cameron was only 24 years old, and he had to sit with that family, and so he's going to see things, and he has seen things, and so I ask you for your prayers for our police, our first responders, our military, those that they see and they do something bigger than themselves. They have my heart. And every day, I'm in Mass. Pretty much I try to be here every day, but I'm praying for all of our law enforcement who it's only going to get worse. It feels like we're in an election year now, and I just saw what went on today in the Catholic Church. I don't even know where that was, but just terrible. There's just, we need it in our world right now. We need our prayers. We need to begin to know that Jesus is alive and present. And I'm going to wrap it up by saying that forgiveness, prayer, fasting, adoration, confession, that's the formula. That's the formula. And not taking things for granted, learning how to forgive. It's taken a while, but I'm there. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm a daughter of the King, and I'm so proud. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.